Reflections in the frosted glass. I can still hear their laughter echoing through the hallways of our family home. A sound that once filled me with warmth, but now feels like shards of ice lodged deep in my chest. "You're going to disgrace us," my brother had spat, his voice laced with contempt. "You're chasing ghosts in the freezer. What a pathetic obsession." It was the last thing I heard before I walked away, leaving behind my family, their mockery, and the memory of my wife, Lydia, who had slipped through the cracks of our modern world, her body frozen in time lost to the machinations of a Cryonics corporation that had promised preservation but delivered betrayal. Years passed, yet the visions of that day lingered, haunting me as I plunged deeper into my research. I became an outcast, an expert in haunted Cryonics investigation, mapping the icy ruins of abandoned facilities and uncovering the chilling truths hidden beneath layers of frost and denial. What I found was more than just spectral whispers. It was a world where the dead spoke through the cold, where the preserved bodies of the forgotten were not merely lifeless husks, but restless souls trapped in a merciless limbo. It was a journey that transformed me, but not without a cost. The darkness I uncovered clung to me like a second skin, a cold shroud that I wore with pride. I became a warning, a figure of dread. Even those who once laughed now looked at me with a mixture of fear and respect. I returned home with the weight of my knowledge heavy on my shoulders, ready to confront the family that had cast me aside. The air was thick with tension when I stepped through the front door, the familiar scent of old wood and dust wrapping around me like a shroud. My mother stood in the living room, her eyes widening as she recognized me. The prodigal son returned. But not as they once knew me. I caught a glimpse of my brother in the corner, his expression shifting from surprise to horror as he took in the changes that years of obsession had wrought upon me. "I've come to show you what I've found," I said, my voice low and steady, filled with the icy calm I'd perfected over the years. I could see the flicker of disbelief in their eyes, the instinctive recoil from the truth I carried. They were still locked in their old patterns, unable to comprehend the reality I had unearthed. "You've lost your mind," my brother finally managed, his voice trembling. "You can't honestly believe in this nonsense." But I didn't need to convince them. I had brought something with me, something that would strip away their skepticism and lay bare the horrors I had faced. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small glass vial filled with a shimmering, frosty mist. It was a sample from one of the haunted Cryonics facilities, a remnant of the souls caught in their frozen prisons. "Witness the truth," I said, my heart racing as I uncorked the vial. The mist swirled around us, filling the room with an otherworldly chill. Instantly, the temperature plummeted and the lights flickered ominously. I could feel the presence of something unearthly edging in, a congregation of lost souls yearning for release. My mother's face turned pale as the shadows lengthened, creeping across the walls like a living entity. "What have you done?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising wind that seemed to howl through the cracks in the house. And then it happened. Beyond the frosted glass of the window, figures began to emerge, translucent forms, their faces distorted with anguish, their mouths open in silent screams. They were the forgotten, the ignored, the victims of the very system I had fought against. The room was filled with their mournful wails, echoing through the air like a requiem for the lost. "Look at them!" I shouted, my voice rising above the cacophony. "This is what you mocked. This is what I've spent years trying to save." My brother stumbled back, his bravado shattered as one of the specters moved closer, its hollow eyes locking onto his. He could no longer deny the evidence before him, the reality of my obsession manifesting in the very room we once shared. "I'm sorry," he cried, his voice cracking. "We didn't believe you. We were wrong." But it was too late. His spirits surged around him, cold and relentless, dragging him into their depths. I watched, a mix of horror and vindication coursing through me as he struggled against the inevitable, his cries swallowed by the chilling wind. In that moment, I understood the true weight of my knowledge. It was not just the uncovering of hidden horrors. It was the realization that some truths are too heavy for the unprepared. I had walked through the fires of the damned to emerge as a bearer of chilling revelations. Yet the cost was steep. My family, who had once stood against me, was now lost in the very shadows they had dismissed. As the last echoes of my brother's screams faded into silence, the spirits retreated, leaving behind a stillness that felt both desolate and liberating. My mother knelt on the floor, tears streaming down her face. A broken woman who had lost everything to her disbelief. "I should have believed you," she sobbed, the sound a haunting melody that resonated within the hollow space of my heart. I turned away from the scene, the weight of my victory settling heavily upon my shoulders. I had shown them the truth, but at what cost? As I stepped back into the cold embrace of the night, I felt the frost creeping back into my bones. A reminder of the shadows that lingered just beyond the edge of understanding. In the end, I was not just a man who had been vindicated. I was a vessel for the cold, haunted truths of a world that refused to acknowledge its own darkness. And as I walked away, the echoes of my family's disbelief haunted me like a chilling refrain. A reminder that some truths are far too terrifying to face, and some souls are far too restless to be ignored.